Hi, my name's Keith Cooper, Northlight Images, and in this video I'm wondering about some questions which applies to this channel as well as many other photographic information sites, and it's brought about by DPReview apparently surviving being bought out. Now, I've mentioned this before, but it raises a fundamental question. DPReview, we're going to live in search of an audience. Who is going to make use of DPReview? They're undoubtedly going to have to change it in some ways. What's next? And it spills over to, certainly for myself, I've written articles and reviews for 20 odd years now. The videos are more recent, so they're only a few years recently, since 2020. But it still comes down to it. Who are you doing it for? What's your audience? Now, with DPReview, we see there have been some comments there. There have been some videos and podcasts with various information from people. So we're seeing some of the background information coming out about Amazon deciding to get rid of DPReview, general cost cutting. Somebody just went, no, it costs too much money, get rid of it. It's not making enough money. Simple decision when you're in a big corporate organization like that. Whether it is actually the amount of people who complained and said, what on earth are you doing? Why are you getting rid of this resource? That led somebody to go, oh, this actually might be worth something for various corporate reasons. We'll save it and perhaps go to the expense of finding someone to buy it. Now, problem is, you can't just sort of go, anyone want it? Oh, I'll take your money, off you go. For corporate stuff like this, particularly when people's jobs are at risk, you have to be a bit more diligent about how you do it, and it all has to be done, and the lawyers get involved and everything else like that. So it's not a simple matter, as some people said, let's club together and buy DPReview. No, DPReview is a site that isn't cheap to run. Now, the IT costs, for my Northlight Images sites, I got pretty minimal IT costs for it. It used to have a lot more traffic back in the heydays of DSLRs, so 10 years ago. The traffic was quite high. And we've had peaks of 100,000 visitors in a day. Now, that's fairly good. I'd love it that it was still that way. I'm sure the advertising on the site would earn a little bit more. But that's, for me, running Northlight as almost a side hustle. My main job throughout this time has been as an engineering, architectural, commercial photographer. That's what I do. That's the bit that really pays the bills. Now, stuff like this and the website, yes, that contributes to the household costs, and I find it interesting. That's why I do it. But any fool can make a profit in a business if you don't pay yourself. The people running DPReview now are not doing it out of the goodness of their heart. That is a job for them, which is why a lot of people, myself included, were somewhat concerned that, they were just sort of told, right, off you go, we're closing this business. It's not a nice way to run things. But big corporate companies, they are not fundamentally nice, no matter what they might want you to believe. But anyway, so somebody's come in and bought them out. Now, like many people, I'd never actually heard of people who were going to be taking them over. They're new corporate overlords. We don't know the arrangements for any of this, so it's pure conjecture. And I know quite a few people have sort of said, oh, well, you need so much money, whatever. No, those who actually know aren't saying anything. So it's going to be conjecture for a while, really. So the company that's taken it over, well, let's have a look at their website. Right at the top of it, the first article is about a new off-road sports car. Doesn't look cheap. It is quite an upmarket gear site aimed at people with money. Aimed at, and this is important, I come back to this, it's aimed pretty much from looking at it, the majority of it's aimed at men with money. It's also not aimed at people of my age, I don't think, really. If you look on the website for who's actually our team, you'll see a whole load of photos. There is nobody on the team remotely approaching my age. I don't expect that these days, but yeah, it certainly shows where their emphasis is. So, Gear Patrol, as they're called. What to make of the website? And I'm assuming that the website is the image they wish to have. I've had a lot of experience over the years of building websites, looking at different websites, having people try to buy my website from me and various other things like that. And it looks like a very nicely made, upmarket, made for affiliate sales site. Why do I say it looks like this? Because I get lots of people saying, I'd like to contribute a guest article to your website. And when you look at it, it's a guest article along the lines of 5 whatevers you didn't know something about. Yeah, classic listicle type stuff. The product reviews didn't look like they'd ever actually, the people who'd written them had ever actually used any of the products. So you've got the whole lot of this sort of stuff. Yeah, as I say, I could be very wrong because they do have a content generation side as well, but they come across very much as a look at this bright shiny stuff that you want. Did we mention you want this? Here it is. Here's a link to buy it. It's got watches. It's got stuff. It is stuff. It is not made for the likes of me. And that, I'm going to assume that I am vaguely sort of part of the DPReview demographic, because I've used it like many people for many years. What do I look for on it? Well, I'm not looking for them to sell me a new watch. I'm not looking for, top 5 vapes or something like that. Very much a market I'm not into. Why do I make this point? Because, well, you could say that in some ways DPReview's audience is not the audience of Gear Patrol, so therefore they don't contradict with each other. Some of the aspects of Gear Patrol might, we don't know. It's all up in the air of sort of corporate stuff. But whatever it is, remember that DPReview is not a cheap site to run in terms of its IT and paying for the staff that they've got. Now that means that somebody somewhere, hopefully, has a good idea of how they're going to make money from it. So, who actually is interested in DPReview? Yeah, there were lots of people came up, and there was the sort of chorus of, well, I'd happily subscribe to a site like this. I'd happily pay money towards it. Well, that's good. The people who are happy to pay money for it are the ones usually who will loudly say, I will be happy to pay money for this. Vast number of people, and I'm probably going to put myself in that, would not be prepared to pay for DPReview. It's the problem of a lot on the internet. People are that used to getting stuff for free that the idea of paying for it, not going to happen. I've had quite a lot of people ask me for the detailed printer reviews I do, why don't I charge access for them? Well, to me that goes, I come from an academic background, and for me, I've bought in many years ago to the knowledge is free type. If you want to click on some ads, I'm grateful. If you want to send a donation for the profiles I create, then I'm grateful, but it's not an essential. That is not a way necessarily to run a business. So it makes you wonder, what are they going to do? So if look at, for an example, you've got DPReview, the various things. The videos, for example, they've lost the 2 people who were associated with making the videos. They've gone elsewhere to Petapixel. Now, how many people were following DPReview because of them? Well, between the 2 sites, they'll be able to work that one out and see how many people have moved with different YouTube channels and things. I don't know what the figures are on that. Nobody's going to mention them in a hurry. So you have a look at, were people visiting DPReview because of people? Of course, you'll get some loud people going on DPReview forums. Well, I'm glad they've gone. I never liked them, etc., etc. Now, I'll come back to some of the people you get on this sort of stuff in a moment. But therein is, you don't know what your demographics are. Now, I'm going to hope that a business the size of DPReview and Amazon and so on had a fairly good idea of exactly who their demographics are. But look at the forums, for example. I'm going to say the age of forum visitors, from the impressions I get from questions and replies and things, is much nearer my age than the photographs of the Gear Patrol team on their website. Not many people of that age are interested in the new stuff. So what are you going to do for people in the new stuff? I don't know. So there's one other big elephant in the room with all tech sites like this. and that is the male to female balance, or massive imbalance as it is. I've known quite a few women photographers over the years, and I've regularly asked, what aspects of the web do you use? Because I knew that the readership of my site was heavily biased towards men watching it and reading it, and I wanted to make it more inclusive. And I've never been able to come up with a way of squaring the circle between the inherent liking for gear type, technical type websites that you find for quite a few men interested in photography compared to women. Now, I've had women regularly contact me, ask me questions about profiling, about camera details and things like that. Great, but they are rare. And that tells me that you're going for a site where you're essentially ruling out half of potential the population of having much interest in your site. Now, you better have a good reason for doing that. Now, back 10 years ago, when all the sites were doing well, you could gloss over that one and think, well, it doesn't really matter. But as camera sales drop down, as the whole interests of where photography is, as that has changed, can you really afford to neglect that much of a potential audience? Are you ever going to be able to produce photography sites which have a more general appeal? I don't know. Now, at the moment, I concentrate very much on stuff. So whether it be cameras, lenses, printers, how to do things. It's very much the how to do things. And therein lies a problem with expanding DPReview in the future. Photography is getting easier. I would say, although it's not necessarily showing up, so printing is getting easier. There gets to a point where photography is easy to do. Now, many would say we've arrived at that with phones, the modern phones, what you can do with it, and that it is easy. And the difficulty is many people, and particularly in, I would say, more in men than women, there is an approach to photography which sees it as a continual acquisition of new craft skills. Now, I've mentioned about photography, in videos in the past about aspects of this, but there is much more amongst male photographers, an inclination to be concerned about the technology and acquiring the necessary skills to be able to do something. It is very much about the how you do it. I would like to move more to the why. Now, I'm going to try a few videos covering why I do various stuff. I did one recently for looking at this wide-angle lens. I went a bit of an experiment there of looking at some of the aspects of why I do things in photography. So I do, as ever, I welcome feedback for anything you'd like to see. Do have a look at the articles on the Northlight Images website. They go back 20 years and I keep all the relevant ones updated. So there are in all 1,500 to 2,000 articles. Now, some of them are quite irrelevant these days, but I still keep them there. I always keep it for, sort of for archive's sake, if nothing else. But I'd be interested to know where you're going to go with that one. Where can the likes of DPReview go with that one? DPReview comes across very much like back in the 80s, 90s, hi-fi magazines. It has esoteric discussions, and I use the word discussions in a polite term there, about things about as irrelevant as using oxygen-free copper for your speaker cables and other arrant nonsense like that. Now, originally I was an electronics engineer doing electronics design and that, so I know the calculator well. I did know the calculations for doing stuff like that, and I've always thought that stuff like oxygen-free copper was just marketing. Now you get that, and I pointed out in printing, camera, you get that all the same. That's selling to that aspect of things, but that type of audience I don't think is growing anymore. What does the upcoming audience want in photography? I don't know. I'm old enough to not really care that much. You know, I haven't got to look forward to maintaining a business for 20 years. Nominally, I can retire in a few years. I don't tend to, but you know, nominally, I can retire in a few years. So where are you going to go? One of the reasons we didn't introduce forums on Northlight Images a few years ago, when we were looking at, perhaps 10 years ago, when we were looking at expanding it, and Karen works with me on this one, is the kind of people we'd have to deal with. There are some mightily unpleasant people who seem to think that there is such a thing as free speech for them, and therefore they can say what they like on your site. Well, they may be able to in some locations, but not on any site I was running. So that would alienate some people. Tough. Yeah, my house, my rules, if you want to. But that meant that basically we'd have to spend a lot of time dealing with people we just didn't much care for or much like. And there is a point where you go, it's not worth the trouble. And we looked at how photography was changing. This is, say 8 years ago. Looked at how photography was changing and thought forums are on a downwards trend. And there's no point jumping in just as something's falling off like that. So I don't know what you're going to do with that, but it comes back to the question, how is the likes of DPReview going to make money? How many people was it genuinely important to? Was it genuinely important to enough people to make it a viable business? I hope so, for a while, for the people who are working there. I had a chat with them a couple of years ago about, because of all the printer reviews I do, and because DPReview hasn't done a proper printer review for well over a decade now. You know, they were interested in what I do in printer reviews. Now, the style of reviews I do don't really fit a site like DPReview, but printing was decided as something that they were interested in, but they hadn't got the resources for it. They were putting the resources into video, and we see what they did with that. Now, how that might change, I don't know. I just produce stuff here for my channel, for my website, and that's it. Yeah, and I do stuff like that. I know people like it, it's useful. But the whole thing is, where is all of this stuff going to go? Now, I'd like to do more more why type photography articles, not at the expense, but in addition to how type photography articles. And as I said before, if you've got suggestions, please let me know. I like it that DPReview is back. It has a sort of friendliness, coziness about it, some aspects. I know some people find some of the forums really unpleasant, and some of the people on, I just don't go places like that there. But yeah, is that enough to last? Are we going to get DPReview in a few years' time? Will it have turned into Gear Patrol but with glossy shiny cameras? Will we see lots more Hasselblad reviews? Probably not anymore. Will we see reviews of £65,000 fixed lens medium format cameras? Maybe, but you don't sell many of those. You don't get much advertising revenue, and it ain't much to support a staff. Anyway, I hope these meanderings have been of some interest, and as I genuinely do, welcome comment back on it as to where you think it's gone. And if you have an idea of how to make photography stuff more interesting to a larger proportion of the population, i.e. to women as well as men, then I'm always interested to know on that one. And thanks very much for watching. Please do subscribe to the channel, because the channel does help pay our household bills, which at a time like this is very much appreciated. And thanks again, and bye.